My name's Joel Kirshen. I'm president of the CSI St. Louis chapter this year. Welcome everybody to tonight's session. If you haven't noticed, things are a little out of whack here lately. We usually hand out awards over the summer for some awards that come from the North Central region, which St. Louis chapter is a part of. And this year we do have several awards. We do have people and individuals and groups associated with the chapter who receive some awards, and those usually are handed out at an awards banquet, but that didn't quite happen. So I thought I wanted to at least recognize those people, congratulate them. Some of them are on the call even. So let me just run through the awards that came from region this year. So there is a student liaison award that went to the Southwest Illinois College. An educational commendation went to Scott Whitcraft, who is someone that has helped us quite a bit over the years. There's a technical commendation went to Ujval Vyas, who is he's been a speaker here before, has always been interesting. A Region Cooperation Award went to David Charles. Hello, David.
Hi, how's it going?
AIA Resource Center. So thank you very much for all your
Thank you guys.
A commendation award has gone to Thad Goodman. A Region Service Award went to our own Steve Gantner. Steve, congratulations. Thank you very much for your work. The chapter itself received a special publication commendation because of the newsletters and other things we try to do. We did get a commendation for that. So I wanted to congratulate everybody who received an award. Thank you very much. We all greatly appreciate everything that you do to help the chapter, help us put on good programs. Tonight we have Len Toenjes from AGC. Len has been with the AGC for a number of years, I think, and Len has been talking to us for the past 4 years and giving us an idea of what's going on, what the forecast is for the economics. I think everybody's going to be interested in what you have to say tonight, Len. So at this point, Len, I'll turn it over to you. Let you share your wisdom with us.
Well, thank you, Joel. I appreciate that. Again, I'm Len Toenjes, president of AGC Missouri. I've been president for 25 years now. I just finished the 25th year at the end of last year. So I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak again this year. I could read all of this to you, which is all the material that we used to put the presentation together, but in the honor of time and your brain cells, I put together a little PowerPoint. So I'm going to talk through this PowerPoint. I think there's a way for me to share my screen. So to start with, I really want to talk about, first we have to take a look back. George was kind enough to mention before we got on the call that when I did this last January, I failed to mention COVID. And I don't know how in the world last January I could have overlooked that or missed that. I mean, obviously everybody knew it was coming last January and was preparing for it. I think we all remember where we were. I was at the AGC of America convention in Las Vegas I flew back from Las Vegas to St. Louis on Friday the 13th, March 13th, which was 2 days after the NBA closed down, and right before hockey, and they canceled the Final Four and everything else. So what I want to do is really look back and where we are today so that we can know where we're going forward and really look at this from three perspectives: from what's going on at the national level, what's going on in Missouri, and then finally get into St. Louis. As far as the national level, looking back at 2020, look a little bit at projects and market segment, look at where we are on materials, and look at where we are on people. If we've heard workforce one time, we've heard it 1,000 times. So sort of look at what happened in 2020 in those three buckets. I hope you're all on a lower floor during the first part of this presentation. You can see what happened year over year, 19 to 20, 32% from last December to this December, and 18% from January to December. Private non-residential construction, still on the slide down. And what you'll see in here is that residential is relatively strong and has been holding its own, but commercial is really getting hit hard. You can see that overall construction spending in November was 4% higher, but look at that number at the bottom. If overall spending is 3.8% higher and construction starts in dollars was down 32%, you know who's getting hit. It's the commercial side of things is really having a very difficult year, or had a very difficult year, and still is working their way out of it. Commercial building, 50% down. And these are all from this pile of things I got just from FMI, it's from Dodge, it's from AGC, it's from 1,000 different sources here. All the information here, but these are all the national numbers that are coming out of all the different statistical sources I could find. You know, you're not looking at 5%, you're looking at 50%. You're not looking at 7.5%, you're looking at 75%. It's unbelievable the impact that COVID and the just the supply chain disruption has really had, and what we're seeing, what we've seen overall in the last 12 months, in the last 9 months, quite frankly. Again, some more market segments. Power work, electric power down 14%, oil and gas down 1%, manufacturing down, office buildings down, highway and street construction down, public education. I am glad I don't own a hotel or a restaurant. I'm glad I work for an essential industry of construction because you'll see later on when we get to the unemployment numbers that public education, lodging, and that segment is getting killed. Prefab buildings up. Warehouse and distribution facilities up. So you see these numbers are pretty much overall, and these are from, as I said, from a variety of different sources, but you can see the trends and the overall general direction is big time down in commercial building, somewhat down in public works, like power and infrastructure, and then up in residential. Materials. We were talking about materials earlier. Rebar prices have jumped up $35 a ton in the last couple of weeks due to scrap shortage of scrap metal, and a lot of our scrap metal now has been purchased overseas. The future price index for diesel was down. It took a little jump here in the last couple of weeks. Copper and brass, 20% up from last year. And we talked a little bit about lumber and plywood, maybe as a result of the fires in California, and again, some of the disruption in the supply chain, what's going on at the Canadian border in lumber and plywood when you're looking at overall cost differentiation there for materials over the last year. Talking about people, in November, unemployment rate was 7.3%. Now, the national unemployment rate is about 6.7%. And Missouri is right around that range. One of the other hats I wear is I'm the chairman of the Missouri State Workforce Development Board. And needless to say, that you talk about a market disruption with literally tens of thousands of people suddenly thrown out of work. While this is all bad news, as I said, I'm glad I don't own a hotel or a restaurant. Our unemployment rate at 7.3%, or what's almost 10% now in December, it's bad. It's 4% higher than the average for all industries, but quite frankly, it's not as bad as it could be, as bad as it is in some other industries. We have regained almost 60% of the jobs that we had lost back in April and May. So we are seeing a bounce back. As I said, the U.S. economy has lost 140 jobs. Unemployment rate's about 6.7%. Look at leisure and hospitality. 500,000 people lost their jobs in those two industries. Construction jobs, again, are bouncing back. We've regained 58%. We're up 51,000 jobs. Manufacturing is coming back, 38,000 jobs. Non-residential is coming back. You see the 29,000 new workers in building, specialty trades, heavy and civil. So from an employment picture towards the end of 2020, we started bouncing back up a little bit, along with material prices, and that's where we're starting to see the market right now in 2020. That's the snapshot of where we are. I will say, just looking back at what we at AGC experienced, we basically had to go into all COVID all the time mode, as I'm guessing a lot of you needed to do, that we ended up really focusing on protecting our workers, keeping the labor contracts and the labor organizations comfortable with what was going on, monitoring what was going on on a regulatory basis. We worked like crazy to keep construction as an essential occupation. That was a critical thing, that our people could keep working. We set up a hotline for craft workers or people to call in if they felt they were experiencing things on the job that were unsafe. They had a place to go so they could keep working. And I'm sure everyone on this call had some extraordinary measures that you needed to take during 2020 to keep going, to keep serving your clients, to keep serving your customers. So the big question into 2021, which markets are coming back? I think there was a little thing called an inauguration today. What impact is that going to have? Where are we going with those same projects and market segments? And where are we going with the people side of this thing? Before I go into 2021, I'll just pause for 1 second. Anybody have any questions so far?
Hi, I had a question. You talked about the supply chain and about the pressures from foreign countries buying up scrap metal. Are there other things in the supply chain that have been affected by COVID, like they don't have enough workers, or there's can you talk about that? How it's affected the different industries that are used in the construction business?
I think there's been, as I said, I think there's been some natural disasters. I think the California fires had a big impact. I think China's economy now is pretty much bounced back. I was looking at the Wall Street Journal earlier this week, and there was an article in there about how Chinese economy is almost back to where it was pre-pandemic. So I think we're starting to see that. I think um, some specialty items that come from overseas, like light fixtures, or some of those fixture things that are manufactured overseas that are having to come in. There's been long delays in getting those things. On the people side, because of the huge unemployment numbers, I don't think we've really seen too much on the workforce supply side. Um, However, I was just talking to some folks, and um, I really wonder how much the workforce is going to be an issue going forward. I think we need to quit looking at high schools. I think we need to look at ex-offenders. We probably need to look at law enforcement people. Yeah, I think if I had a choice of being in law enforcement or construction, I know where I'd go right now. I think there are veterans. Probably the military is going to be scaling down. I think there's going to be new opportunities for veterans. So I think uh, most of the disruption has been just either raw materials from on the lumber side of things, or the prefabricated things, like I said, like fixtures and things like that that are getting having trouble getting through the ports. Quite frankly, I mean, you've got when you have that many people who are getting tested or are um, in quarantine, just moving the product and handling the delays at the borders and getting things in has been a struggle.
Hey,
Um,
Lynn,
yes,
um, this is Russ Thompson with Negro Materials. If I could just make one quick comment to Bruce's question regarding materials.
yeah,
Um, just a couple of things that I've heard as a distributor. For instance, insulation's getting pushed very far out with lead times. Um, the uptick in residential has pulled some manufacturing away from the commercial to the residential. Trucking is a bit of an issue still, actually. And then with regard to COVID, the manufacturing lines had to make adjustments. So it slowed them down a bit. Some of them picked back up after an initial adjustment period, but others have stayed slower because of the, I guess the adjustments that they made. And one that I heard today, actually, there was some steel manufacturing that shut down um, a furnace or furnaces for COVID because they anticipated a slowdown. And to fire those back up is a very lengthy process. I think if I'm not mistaken, if I heard it correctly, they actually have to rebuild some of the furnaces, put new bricks in, and that sort of thing. So you're talking, months to reboot some of those things that were shut down in anticipation of a COVID slowdown. And that I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
that is a good point. I appreciate that, Russ. I'd heard the same thing about insulation lead times from some other folks that they're looking at double-digit weeks lead time. Is that pretty much what you're hearing, Russ?
Yes, sir. There are lead times um, that people are putting in orders and being told March for
Yeah.
delivery. Yeah.
So I think that supply chain disruption is something that is certainly dampening some of the recovery and some of what we have coming ahead. Now I will take a break here. Um, we are, as AGC, we are on a calendar year fiscal year, and our revenues are based on market activity. That's how we assess our dues. So late in the year, we get some of our key contractors, McCarthy, Alvarez, Tarleton, some of those folks together with some of the big owners in town, BJC, Ameren, uh, folks like that, some of the big purchasers of construction. And based on what we just saw and all those numbers going in the tank, I walked into that meeting prepared for the worst. I thought, oh my God, what am I going to have to do for 2021 with staff salary freezes and what other sort of things am I going to have to cut out of my budget? And we started around the table with all the owners. Within 20 minutes, I couldn't believe it. The conversation was, we hope as owners that you are going to have enough people and enough craft workers to build all the work that we have planned for 2021. That as we get on the backside of this thing, they're looking at us as the contractors like, you guys better be ready to have the people to get us back up and running for the second half of this year. So, as Steve mentioned yesterday, we were on a call with AGC of America, and according to them, the sky is falling. Maybe at a national level, it may be, but what we heard from our local owners was the other side of the thing. And I'm looking at this, the Dodge Momentum Index is up 14% for commercial work looking ahead. Institutional's up by a little bit. This came from CIRT, Construction Industry Roundtable. Engineering executives, 68% of respondents characterize business outlook as somewhat or very positive. This is more in alignment with what I heard from our local owners than what I heard on the call from AGC of America yesterday. Of course, AGC of America is in Washington, D.C., and the sky is falling in Washington, D.C. Fortunately, it's not falling in St. Louis or in Missouri. This is Dodge's predictions. We lost volume in 2020, but there is some momentum up for 2021. It's not great. AIA, of course, is on the other side. So AIA, again, these are national numbers. So AIA is still seeing this downward slide. And I think this is somewhat consistent with what we heard from our owners, that we are looking at a rebound about the time about the time the humidity and the temperatures are in alignment here in Missouri, in St. Louis. About the time we get the 80 degrees and 80% humidity, we ought to be about back to a very, very healthy market. But the word I've heard is a lull. We're in a lull right now, and I think we're going to be there for a little while yet. Again, this is sort of a national index of what we see as far as what's going on with the overall economy. Still a downward trend overall. This is a contractor survey. What you're seeing obviously is Materials and labor costs going up, everything else going down. Backlogs going down. People are working off their backlogs, no doubt about it. Non-residential is down. Your personal business is down. So this is a pretty good snapshot. Again, a national survey that of contractors that shows their sentiment of where they feel we are headed in the first quarter. Again, this is the first quarter. I thought this was kind of an interesting, more long-term fact that this American Rental Association deals with rentals of all the heavy equipment, scrapers, dozers, cranes, all that sort of equipment. They are looking at rentals again are down in 2020. That 13% down in 2020. They're looking at still 2021 being a little bit sluggish, but then seeing 2022 bouncing back in terms of growth of rental equipment. Now, of course, that's all the heavy commercial construction. You know, these are not this is not Hertz. This is the big rental equipment guys that are all the tunneling machines and all the other things that are utilized in heavy construction. So I think this is a pretty good picture of this lull and then this growth out second half and long term. One of the things that I think as part of this growth is going to be what we think of as infrastructure. You know, if you believe anything that any politician says, there is this conversation about this big infrastructure bill that somehow the light is going to dawn that it makes more sense to pay people to go to work than to pay people to stay home, and that we would actually invest in infrastructure and spend money there. Of course, now traditionally, when we think of infrastructure, we're thinking of bridges, roads, dams. Now we're thinking about waterfront. And waterfront, I was talking to somebody who does a lot of work for the Corps of Engineers. The Corps of Engineers is talking about what they call non-structural mitigation, which is basically wetlands. When you're talking about flood control, that's what you're talking about. You're not talking about maybe mega projects like we might be thinking about. Renewable energy. I think you'll see it later here. Wind farms is at the bottom here. Broadband, all these sorts of things that infrastructure isn't a sidewalk or a road. Now, infrastructure is moving the silt around at the edge of the river or the lake. Infrastructure is putting up cell towers. Infrastructure is laying the broadband cable. You can see at the bottom there, infrastructure is liquid natural gas export. It's wind farms. It's those sorts of things that we're looking at. When we're looking at a 1.5 or 1.8 or 1.9 trillion dollar federal package that is being talked about, how much of that ends up in traditional, what we think of as roads and bridges, is going to be about the same as it has been in the past. The last bill that the latest, this round 2 of the COVID relief plan that was passed, there was a portion in there for roads and bridges and transportation. To give you an idea of how that money got split, MoDOT received $238 million in new money to invest roads and bridges statewide. $238 million. Metro here in St. Louis, by state, to operate the public transit system received $91 million just in the St. Louis region to help pay for bus drivers and keep the buses running or keep the trains running. So the 238 million statewide for roads and bridges, 91 million for St. Louis for public transit gives you an idea, I think, of the type of blend of infrastructure spending that we will see going forward. I think it was mentioned again on the call yesterday. Look back at the bill that the Democratic infrastructure bill that was proposed last summer, and you probably get a pretty good picture of where this is going. Again, this is where we're going in the next quarter. This is the first quarter of 2021. You can see that there's a lot of bullishness on healthcare. There's a lot of bullishness on industrial. There's a lot of bullishness on manufacturing. No big surprise. Commercial, not too happy. Lodging, not too happy. Office building, who in the hell knows? That's not a happy world either. So, you can see that, again, lodging lost 500,000 people. Office work, here we are, the English language is a wonderful tool. Zoom, 3 years ago, Zoom meant to go somewhere and go somewhere fast. Now Zoom means we're all sitting in our basement going nowhere. We've gone back. It's 180 degrees. So what's going to happen with office? What's going to happen with lodging? Those are not real bullish markets. Healthcare, strong, and you can see a little green there on the right. Those are the first quarter areas that people are looking for growth. The transportation's not doing too bad. But international, I think one of the things when you look at international, certainly with the new administration, a lot of the regulations, the trade barriers, tariffs, a lot of those things are going to be changing. So you're probably going to see international growing to some extent there.
Len, I think you have a question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Steve?
Yeah, I'm not quite following the graphic there. What are the different colors?
This is a contractor perception of change. Red means the market is going to be dropping severely. Yellow means dropping moderately. Gray is about the same. Blue is somewhat increase, and green is a strong increase from left to right.
Okay.
Now, the stronger numbers on the right mean a stronger market. The higher numbers on you can see healthcare has no red, industrial no red, international no red, manufacturing no red. The red markets are bad, and then the green markets on the right are good. So 2021, again, this was 228 contractors who responded to this survey. What do you see for dollar value of projects? Again, warehouses, high. Other healthcare. Now, other healthcare is, as you can see, these are clinics, screening. These are not hospitals. Hospitals are down in that next tranche at 27%. Other healthcare is a lot of the temporary facilities or interim facilities that are being set up, lab work, those sort of things. That's a strong market. Warehouse is strong. Hospitals are still up there, but Water and sewer, again, environmental work, somewhat strong. So you can see there on the right-hand side is sort of the average of all those, or a compilation of the higher and lower. So as you go from the top down, you're looking at water, other healthcare, and warehouse being the only three that are in the plus range. Again, as we talked earlier, power sort of there, healthcare sort of there. Federal, I'm kind of surprised this is down a little bit. It says, looks like most people thought it would stay about the same. Again, highway and bridge, I think you're going to see more of the infrastructure money go to other types of infrastructure rather than roads and bridges. Manufacturing, who knows what's going to go with going offshore. K through 12, so much of that relies on bond issues and the willingness of those 500,000 people who've been laid off from their job at the convenience store or the hotel to vote in favor of a bond issue is anybody's guess. And of course, here we sit on our Zoom call with only 5% people feeling that office is going to be higher, and 75% thinking that office market is pretty moribund right now. Again, what are the things that worry people about going forward? The condition here, continuing impact of the pandemic, supply chain, projects, workers. Supply chain we talked about, that is going to take some real time to work through. Workers, again, I think you've all experienced it, but you have, I know there are people in every office that there are people on one end of the spectrum that would walk into a germ factory tomorrow and take the deepest breath they could. There are people at the other end of the spectrum who will not leave their basement in a spacesuit until everybody on the planet has been vaccinated. And trying to deal with that disparity of approaches to managing a job or managing a workforce is extremely difficult. And that's not, part of it is certainly physical, but there's a big part of it that's emotional and psychological that's going to be a continuing impact. And that just works its way up the chain to projects, to managing projects, to being able to keep projects on schedule, to keep workers there, to have some reliance on that. Certainly, as the market shrinks, there's more competition. Material costs are pretty high up here as far as a concern. As we talked about earlier, the material costs are bumping up double digits. Lumber, insulation was mentioned, material, brass, copper, those things are all headed up. Lack of private sector work, again, worker shortage. Some of that has to do with the just people's fear to come to work. You can't work from home on a construction job. Infrastructure, you can see the list here. What the concerns are. Interestingly enough, the last one is the impact of the immigration policy on the labor supply. And it's really great to see that the relationships with owners, subcontractors, and vendors is just like everybody's just getting along as much as they possibly can, that is not a problem in anybody's mind. very interesting that that's such a low rated thing. Obviously, there's a good supply of subcontractors um, and relations, and at least in these people's minds, uh, is really pretty good. I guess in tough times, people figure out how to pull together here. Is sort of the message that I'm reading from this chart. This is more now away from the national and into the Midwest. With what sort of a variance are you seeing um, in 2021? What do you see in the Midwest? This is a different survey, but it talks about what areas do you see as being strong in the Midwest. Uh, very much in alignment with what we saw earlier. Um, warehousing up a little bit, water and sewer up a little bit, and these other healthcare facilities up a little bit. Where's the big drops? Private office, retail, lodging. No big surprises here, but this is still obviously continuing into 2021 in the Midwest. Not a whole lot of variance here between this and the national outlook. Have you had an owner postpone or cancel projects? 80%. At least one postponed or canceled projects. 46% of them canceled. 46% of that 80% of projects canceled. Here again, you see this wave moving back. A lot of don't knows. When do you expect your firm's volume will return? More than 6 months, 34%, don't know, 20%. So the majority of people, 54%, are looking at the second half of the year. The don't know are probably the 20% that are really honest here. Again, Midwest, biggest concerns, very consistent material costs, competition's down, or competition's here, but you can see the alignment here. The Midwest is pretty much in alignment with the rest of the country on these concerns that people have. State and local regulations is a little bit lower, I think, primarily because there are so many states in the Midwest. I'll say, with the exception of Illinois, that Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, Iowa, a little bit different regulatory environment than maybe the rest of the country. Missouri compared to the U.S. Not so much concern about material costs. There's a big difference here on inadequate funding for infrastructure. 12% spread. The last time Missouri increased the fuel tax was 1996. The fuel tax in Missouri has not been increased, and transportation funding has not been increased since 96. A lot of other expenses have gone up. MoDOT right now has openings for 800 people statewide, and part of the reason is they can't pay people anything. People who go to work for MoDOT right now still qualify for food stamps. So they are that is a big issue, and I can talk about that a little more later. But that's a big disparity in these numbers when you look at where the big variances are between the United States and overall and Missouri. Uh, Big delta there. Material costs not so much, competition not so much, worker shortage just about the same. So you can sort of see where the one big marker is there. And this is the Missouri thing. Looks like a lot of people feel like they've already caught up here in our part of the world. Big difference. 47% of the contractors in Missouri are already ready for 2021 where they were. Another 30% think, well, another 7% say it's going to be in the first 6 months of the year. So here again, you almost have the inverse. That 54% of the contractors in Missouri think that by June, they're going to be back to where they were last year, as opposed to the 54% on the other, or 55% you can see here in the U.S. that think it's going to be more than 6 months or don't know. So pretty big delta there. This slide sort of speaks for itself. Again, when we look at consistencies here, again, looking for differentials. Look at the water and sewer at the bottom. U.S. is 1%, Missouri 15%. Warehouse, U.S. 4%, Missouri up 23%. Manufacturing, U.S. down 17, Missouri up 3. Again, consistent with the prior slide, bridge and highway down 20%. Hospital down 20%. So you can kind of see where the market strengths are. Now, power is another big one. Again, Ameren was in our meeting that we had not that long ago. They're in the process of shutting down their last coal plants. A lot of this power work that they're talking about is transmission lines and not power generation. They're looking at bringing power in from other parts of the country as they shut down Labadie or shut down Rush Island or shut down their coal plants, which I think here within the next couple of years, all of Ameren's coal plants are going to be closed. They are not building new power generation plants. They are building new transmission lines to bring in the power from elsewhere. But you can see that the power market is strong. And this gives you a pretty good snapshot of where the differences are between the national numbers and what it looks like here in our state. Workforce, I don't think anybody thinks it's going to be easier to hire in Missouri. Not going to be easier. A lot of people just think things are going to stay about the same. No real variation here. It's not going to get easier, but looks like people sort of think that the labor market in Missouri is going to stay pretty static.
Len, is that because there's just not a supply of workers, or is it because there's no work?
I think it's the no work aspect. I think that what I've seen, AGC does have a very small job posting service that people can send resumes in. And we also will get calls from contractors who are looking for folks. We're getting more resumes in now than requests. The requests we're getting in are for project managers, for superintendents. I think that the aging of the workforce, despite the fact that we shut the economy down for 9 months, we did not stop the calendar or the clock. And, we all got 9 months older. And I think that what we've seen is real concern at the project manager, superintendent level that I can get bodies and I can get restaurant workers to come in and hang sheetrock, or I can get folks to come in and do concrete work. But when we're talking about more of the people skills and those management skills, there's a little bit of a hole there, but not that much of a hole. There just isn't that much work. To go back to that prior slide, I mean, we're looking at a lull right now. I think more of the concern is second half of the year, second half of 21, and what's going to happen there. Where are those people going to come from going forward and into the second half? That answer your question?
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about transportation funding. I put this up here because, as I said, MoDOT received $238 million in their this last federal package, which basically helped them keep the program right about $1 billion a year in the state. Looking at the surrounding states, MoDOT has the lowest transportation program of any of the contiguous states. The MoDOT, the fuel tax rate in Missouri is 49 in the United States. The only state that is lower is Alaska, and they have the third or fourth most road miles. The last time they passed a gas tax, the only way they could get it done was to promise everybody the sun, the moon, and the stars, and all the lettered and numbered state routes are all MoDOT's charge. So they have a huge system and a real funding strap. One of the things we're working on for 2021 is a legislative model that would increase the fuel tax by 2 cents a year over the next 6 years for a 12-cent increase. However, that would be voted on by the legislature, and in order to allow it to fit in under Missouri's Hancock Amendment, which limits the legislature's amount to impose a tax, there would be a proviso in the bill that any Missourian who did not want to pay that extra 2 cents could save their fuel tax receipts and turn them in at the end of the year and get a refund of that 2 cents, which, based on the vehicle miles traveled and based on the average fuel economy, would result in a refund to anybody who went through that of $11 in over a year's time. That's what the 2 cents a gallon would mean for the average Missourian. However, we live in such a tax-averse state that appears to be the front-running way to fund MoDOT right now. There may be another, the federal transportation bill In October, it was renewed for another year. So the federal transportation bill will be up for renewal or reauthorization in October of 2021. What that might look like is anybody's guess. As I said, I think there'll be a lot of public transit. There'll be a lot of unique approaches to funding transportation. However, I think something 2021, uh, something may happen in the legislature, quite frankly, with electric vehicles and alternative fuel vehicles. This may be, and I've heard this expressed in Jefferson City, this may be the last time the state of Missouri ever looks at increasing the fuel tax, because by 6 years from now, when this 2 cent per year thing, if it passes, would get ramped in, we're going to see a lot more electric and or alternative fuel vehicles. So this is a 2021 issue to stay tuned to. I talked about national. I talked about Missouri.
Len, I had a question
Shoot.
about okay, are there alternative funding method systems in other states besides the gas tax? Because I mean, if people aren't traveling a lot or we convert to electric, how far can that take you? So there are other systems of taxation or funding other than just the federal grants to the states that they're using that are more successful?
Bruce, I think that there are two models. Certainly, one is vehicle miles traveled, and that seems to be that's been in the experimental stage. I mean, that there is some sort of a method to measure the amount of miles that your vehicle travels in a year's time, and when you go in for registration or when you uh, periodically some reading is transmitted from your vehicle uh, to state agency, and then your usage of the road system is billed back to you or taxed back to you based on the number of miles you drive. That's a system that is in its experimental stages. Some people feel like it's Big Brother following them around and tracking where they're going. Um, in fact, anybody with a cell phone knows that you're being tracked everywhere you go anyway. But um, that's one method. Certainly, tolls are a method that's used successfully in other states. In Missouri, that's an extremely tough sell because of a lot of the trucking interests are against that. Sales tax is an option. You know, the last three taxes we've had on the ballot that were a sales tax or some sort of a blend of a sales tax and a fuel tax all got killed at the ballot. It's interesting. We did a focus group about tolling, and people were like, "Oh well, you know, toll the trucks. Just raise diesel prices and just toll the trucks because then they'll pay for it." And I'm listening to this focus group. I'm like, do you think the trucking companies are going to eat that and not pass that along to you as a consumer? When
I
you,
was laughing as you said that.
pardon me?
I was laughing as you said that.
It, people's misunderstanding of this is incredible. So, um, quite frankly, Bruce, I think in my lifetime I will live to see some sort of a vehicle miles traveled system put in place, because then that treats what it moves from what uh, fuel you're using to power your vehicle to the miles that your vehicle travels, and is an indirect correlation to the wear and tear that your vehicle puts on the road. And it gets rid of whether it's autonomous, whether it's electric, whether it's hydrogen, whether it's CNG, regardless. I think that's ultimately where we have to get to, but there are some political hurdles that need to be crossed there.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
St. Louis. What's going on in St. Louis? The second slot over is percentage change in construction employment, almost flat. U.S. down 3.5%. St. Louis, almost no change. Almost no change in the year's time. So you can see that we've, as was shown earlier, we've bounced back. We've recovered a lot of those jobs here locally. There's really no area here that's really grown other than whatever other services are. I have no idea what other services are. That it's up by 5.1%. If somebody can explain what that means, I'm not sure. But other than that, everything is doing very well. But construction, our part of the world, is flat, holding its own. Again, here, these are the actual number of jobs. You're talking 100 jobs change in construction, and you see the changes there in the other. Again, leisure hospitality getting killed. I know that they've sold the bonds for the convention center downtown. I know that's a project that Kitty Radcliffe is promoting, and I've seen the drawings of what they have and the preliminary work that they have going down there. I'm not sure how they're going to retire the bonds, but they do have, when you're looking at projects, that's a big project. That's not on a whole lot of people's radar screen, I don't think, but they're moving ahead with it. The city's moving ahead with that project. So, what do we have going on in St. Louis project-wise? Talked about MoDOT a little bit. The I-270 bridges for folks that get up north. I mean, that's a $250 million project there. The National Geospatial Agency. That project, again, I was talking to somebody earlier today who was a subcontractor looking at that project. They're talking second half of the year. They're still in drawings. They're still in planning. I mean, there are two parallel universes that move at two different speeds. There's the universe that we are all in, where the clock moves at a certain speed and the calendar changes every day. And then there is the clock and the calendar that the Corps of Engineers uses. And it definitely moves a lot slower than the world that we live in. So we're probably talking about NGA well into 2022. That there are, as I said, there's still drawing going on. I think they've decided it's going to be a tilt-up box, and they've gotten that far, but the interior design is not done yet. There's still people putting preliminary numbers together, so I think we're a ways away from that. Soccer stadium, a big project. That project's going to be, now the MLS, the Major League Soccer, has postponed the soccer schedule for a year. So we're going to have a nice stadium that's going to sit empty for a year. But it's moving along on schedule and is happening. BJC was part of this discussion I mentioned earlier, that they are still planning an aggressive work plan going forward into 2021. Merchants Bridge is still ongoing. And then this last slide is the audience participation portion. I would really like to hear from you or have some time for you all to share as you are going about your daily business. What do you see for projects in St. Louis in 2021?
Len, this is Russ Thompson with Megwer.
Yeah, Russ.
I would say that we try to keep a pretty close ear to the rails as a supplier, as a distributor. Most of what we see coming down the pike is the multifamily, I'll call it high-end residential. We'll see how many of those actually go, but there certainly seem to be a lot of them on the drawing boards for the coming year. And then there's rumor of a dorm that will be coming locally. Now, this is not St. Louis specifically, but as a St. Louis company, we would certainly look to be involved in anything in Columbia. We do happen to have a location there. And the University of Missouri Columbia has had some pretty substantial projects moving forward and have some on the radar that look to move forward that would be of a fair size.
Okay, hey, couple quick points, and I just retired a year ago out of the engineering field. I used to work for a major company downtown in the mechanical side, and then I went on supplier side, and I still have my own private business, so I keep tabs of stuff, and I still keep my PE up. Also curious your thoughts on renewable energies, because that is something that no doubt solar, Ameren's got all the rooftops bought up for energy with solar, but wind and all that kind of stuff. Are you seeing there's a huge interest there. Are you seeing a lot of that in some of your surveys? I didn't really notice that in your discussion.
Yeah, I don't think there necessarily needs to be a payback there, because I think there are going to be a lot of incentives, a lot of government incentives in place, similar to what we saw in the Obama administration, where there are significant either tax incentives or direct payments to incentivize those types of construction. So without that additional support, you're right, Steve. They don't necessarily make sense. It's still a lot cheaper to pump oil or produce natural gas. But when you're talking about, administrations talking about no more pipeline construction and those sort of things, I think you're going to see a lot of that incentivized in the infrastructure bills. That's going to have an impact on those sort of investments.
And a quick follow-up, we've been blessed with fossil fuels, that kind of stuff, but there is no doubt that renewable energy, we've got to pay attention to it. But like you said, the incentives are it's still going to be a payback thing, but the incentives by government is what's going to make it happen because of the investment it takes to build those products.
That's where it's not going to be a lot of private money. It'll be if it is private money, it'll be venture capital chasing incentive credit or tax credits, sort of thing.
Or one last question on, in this city, and I'll say we've been blessed with it, probably 6 very good design, build mechanical contractors that feed us work locally here. when they do work outside of our territory, which can kind of skew numbers on sales. But the reality is, design build is a factor. Do you monitor that much with the AGC locally?
As far as design build, I think when you're talking about the mechanical side of things, I think what I see more there than design build is really prefabrication or modularization. You're looking at, I think what you're seeing is these, what I'll call a mashup type shop where you've got interiors people and mechanical people and electrical people working in a production line type environment, and working with engineers and architects to figure out how to utilize technology and planning to move away from the traditional build it in the field model to more of a build it in the shop. And a lot of that is not about the materials or the skills. It's all about the design and the planning. We had a presentation. We had a person who runs bridge design for HNTV out of New York on a webinar about 2 weeks ago, and he had a pie chart that showed 1915 how much of a project was materials and labor, and how much was planning and design. And 2020, how much is material and labor, and how much is planning and design. And the shift was dramatic. How much more time is going into planning and design to squeeze the labor hours and the materials, and using more sophisticated computer modeling of the project, using more sophisticated computer scheduling, uh, pre-designing things, and even to the point of understanding what the job site conditions are as far as lifting and placing these components into the final structure. And all the time that is spent doing that is really changing the trade model, and really changing what the uh, craft workers are. You talked about the mechanical folks we have here in St. Louis. Um, Mechanical trades, let's face it, those we had Ford, Chrysler, GM, and Anheuser-Busch, and that employed a lot of pipe trades, a lot of mechanical folks. Ford's gone, Chrysler's gone, GM scaled back, and Anheuser-Busch is in debt. And what's happening is this move to modularization and prefabrication, and that's really changed the skills and the work hours, and those things are, that market is growing not just locally, but it's becoming regional uh, as far as these different pieces can be transported. And I think the people who are half my age are really seeing that as the wave of the future, to get smart about how to reconfigure the traditional construction process into that model. And I think, when you take away the economic outlook and you look at what's going to go on. I mean, this chart shows our work hours, our total trade hours. These are the basic trades, work hours that we collect at AGC. This is all the hours in the field for carpenters, laborers, operating engineers, cement masons, and iron workers. the 5 basic trades. If anybody thinks we will ever get back over 18 million work hours in our St. Louis marketplace for those 5 trades, I will buy you 3 beers. Maybe I'll buy you a 6-pack. We are, it's a different marketplace and it's a different number of work hours that's being performed in the field. You can see that even when we felt like we were having a relatively strong recovery during those early Trump years, 15, 16, 17, we were running at 12 million, which is basically 2/3 of what we had when you had Weldon Spring, you had the new Busch Stadium, you had a couple other big projects going at that time. Of course, we all know what happened in '08, and we have never come back from that. So this is the world we live in now, that the labor and the material costs are driving more planning and more scheduling sophistication to bring the projects to the job in different pieces and in a different model than what we've seen in the past. And the technology is there, and the smart contractors. And when you're looking ahead at 2021, I don't have a picture of a computer in here, but I mean, you all see it. This is what's going to be happening, and I don't see that line on the right bubbling back up to 18 million anytime soon. Talking about workforce, AGC and our education foundation have propped up this website. This is something that we're using to attract young people into the trades. There's no such thing as a career fair anymore. If you think the schools are going to let a couple hundred kids get together in a room and talk to anybody, that isn't going to happen. Everything's, because with the COVID world we live in, trying to do a career fair doesn't work. Trying to attract young people or trying to attract anybody in the industry is taking a different approach. So this Missouri.byf, which means Build Your Future, is the website that we are using. This is part of a national. There's a Build Your Future. It's a national group, so there are a lot of these in a lot of different states. This is designed to help anybody understand the difference between a sheet metal worker and an iron worker, the difference between a brick mason and a cement mason, difference between a glazer and a plumber, that people just don't understand what those different trade skills are, what pay rates are, how they get involved in them. This is the way of the world now. We're all sitting in front of the computer right now. I'm encouraging you for workforce. If you can spread this is totally nonpartisan. It's not union. It's not open shop. It's not urban. It's not rural. It's not basic trades. It's not specialty trades. This is just designed to help anybody understand what the potential careers in construction are and how to get into it. We don't have this problem today. You saw the line on the last slide that was going down, but second half of 2021, I think we are going to need this. Second half of 2021, based on what I hear from owners, I've seen in these other slides on this research, I think Missouri, Springfield, Missouri, in the last in the research I looked there, Springfield, Missouri was ranked number 3 in the United States in terms of growth of construction jobs in the last 12 months, in percentage growth of construction jobs. There's a lot of, I talked to a person down in Springfield this morning, and they are seeing a significant rebound in that part of the world. So we are going to need people. This is a website that we've put up that is for any young person or ex-offender or veteran that can consider construction as a career. So that's my plug for Missouri.byf.org. Here's my predictions. If anybody knows what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are going to do, and what the House and the Senate, what the Senate's going to do, is anybody's guess. There's going to be an infrastructure bill. What's going to be in it, who knows? There are going to be some significant changes in labor regulations. You saw earlier the concern about labor prices. I think we, as much as President Obama looked to work with labor, I don't know that he really gave labor anything. I think the new Secretary of Labor, Mr. Frank, is a former head of the building trades in Boston. So don't be surprised when we see some significant changes in labor regulations going forward in the new administration. I think that environmentally, talked about a little bit, we're going to see a lot of alternative fuels. We're going to see contractors have maybe some more difficulties with what types of restrictions and regulations they're going to have to use on job sites. At the same time, in the state, there's a potential to see some sort of a fuel tax increase, some sort of a infrastructure there. MSD is continuing to move forward with their program. NGA is going to continue going forward. That's a long-term play. The convention center, the bonds are sold. There's something that's going to happen there. And again, the core area, the Washington University BJC complex keeps churning on. So predictions are a very slow first half of the year, and then rebound second half of the year, maybe to the point where in the first half of the year everybody comes accustomed to the new administration. I think the two most powerful people in the United States right now are probably Steve Manchin and Susan Collins, the two swing people in the Senate that can hold out for whatever they think might be right. But that being said, it's certainly going to be a lot different world. The sky is not going to fall. The private market is going to recover once the vaccines get rolled out, and once people get over the physical and psychological hurdles. There's certainly pent-up demand. It's just a case of churning through this thing and seeing what people's patience might be. I do a weekly podcast. This comes out every Tuesday or Wednesday. You can get this on iTunes. You can get it on Google. You can get it on any sort of place you go to listen to podcasts. And if you want to stay tuned between now and next January, in the eventuality you might invite me back, this is a chance to sort of keep up to date. It's 15 minutes once a week. It's a chance to hear um, from different folks in different walks of life. We've got IT people. I've got a guy who's the project manager on the soccer stadium. Folks from that work with Corps of Engineers across the board. So it's some place for you to stay up to date in the interim.
It was a really good one in July, if I remember correctly.
Oh God, that was you know, I've gotten calls from so many agents about that thing, Steve. So many different agents. So thank you. This is our website. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to your group. It's really a pleasure to be able to share some information about AGC and about what we're doing, and also to answer any questions you might have. Should be a good year.
All right. Well, Len, thank you very much. It would be nice. Hopefully next time you can actually hear a round of applause. I guess this time we'll give the visual thumbs up from everybody who's muted. So
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you very much. Once again, Len, thank you very much again. Thanks to all. I want to say thanks to Hank, who is our helper here with kind of running the AV side of life here, and
You're very welcome. Thank
everybody
you.
talking and going. So thank you very much. And like I said, hopefully soon I'll be able to buy people a beer at whatever watering hole we're closest to. All right, everybody. Have a great evening, all.